Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Austin Whitsitt, John Kays, DL Hill, Julian Jeremiah, Tommy Swagnuts, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
There was a word he put in front of the gold proof. I forgot what he said. You reiterated it too when you were talking to him. But I was re-listening to that. That is my son's argument. So I sent it to my son, but he still hasn't listened to it yet. I think he's afraid.
Afraid of what? Hearing it repeated over and over again that begging the question's a fallacy?
Yeah, but here's their mindset, Nathan. You're still not answering the question. That's his mindset. It's the same thing. They're not answering the question.
What question?
That they appear that there's 2 points in the sky.
Yeah, and
it appears that whatever they said, that's exactly what my son says. It looks like it appears that they're going in the opposite way. So no matter how much I tell them that you're putting yourself on the ball, you're begging the question, that's number one. You can't look at it like that. That has nothing to do with the ground we're standing on.
No. If you look at a Chinook helicopter with two rotor blades, right, they're going round and round in two different locations above you. Okay. Well, that's no different to the description of the two different stars. Well, why does it in any way imply that you're on a ball? It doesn't. But they say, well, no, it means we're on the top and bottom of a ball. That's why it implies a ball. And you go, well, no, that's just you begging the question. Just assuming that takes place on a ball.
Exactly. So what I say to my son is, the only way that works is if you put yourself on that ball.
Yeah. You got to start with the assumption that when I'm at the bottom of the ball, antipode from where I start, I look up, it's formally down from where the position I started, but then that swirly pattern is above my head upside down on a ball. We go, why did we need any of the upside down on a ball bit? We didn't. You just inserted it because it was part of your fundamentalist presupposition that you're on a ball that you'll always hold true regardless of where the starting point is. Did 10th man come and go? What's the score there? Yes, Nathan.
I don't know, but he's usually always here. He was.
He just came and went.
Re-listening. No, I didn't see that. I was doing something else. Re-listening to that show, though, I mean, that's classic ass beating there. Did you I even said it to him one time. You're getting killed. And he says, no, I'm not.
They just can't quite believe it's happening, basically. I have a sphere belief and therefore I'm right, and these people have got a flat earth belief and obviously are wrong. I can go in, explain how I know it to be a sphere, describe antipodal star rotation on a begging the question spherical surface, and Bob's your uncle. Everyone's a winner. And then we go, no, you haven't actually inferred that logically by what you've described. You've just assumed your outcome. And they go, no. And you go, well, let's take you through what a begging the question fallacy is. Do you accept that what you've done is beg the question? Yes, I accept it. I accept it's a fallacy. But I haven't done it. Yeah, you have. That's why we're explaining it to you. Well, that's a straw man. I didn't say that. Yeah, you did. That's why we're explaining it to you. Well, that's science. Here we go. My antipodal star rotation claim is science. All right. Well, let's formulate it into a scientific hypothesis then. I didn't claim science. That's a straw man. Like, yeah, you did. No, you're just making up that I said it was science. That's a straw man. Like, this is pathetic.
Yeah, I'm just happy that everything's always recorded. It's like I'm laughing as it's going on because I know when I listen to it again, I'm going to be laughing even harder. But, yeah, and then to accuse you of lying, you're lying to me. Can anybody else talk to me? Does anybody else want to talk? That was funny. Yeah, save you from me. That was hysterical. I got to listen to it again. I listened to it 3 times already.
Hey, 10th.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What are you guys talking about?
About going postal, this guy.
Someone's going postal. Oh, the postal guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took a licking.
Boom, boom. Second-rate rumpus, that's what he was.
Yeah.
When he asked you guys for the ice wall, I watched that passage like 10 times.
Did he ask us for a... Yeah, he did, didn't he? Right at the beginning, he started asserting a false dichotomy, straw man, ice wall.
Well, give me the right kind of chip, and I'll go look and come back with a report. How's that? If they let me.
Chip? You talking to us?
Yeah, I'll just say, well, that's one way to find out.
Find out what?
If there's an ice wall.
Oh, I completely lost track of what you were talking about. What ice wall? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I need a ship to go find out if it's there or not. I got used to sexting along the way, too.
They love their false dichotomies and straw men, and they love to project them straight onto us when we actually pull apart their actual argument. Oh, that's just a straw man. No, it isn't. That's your actual argument being ripped apart in front of your very eyes.
Yeah, they love to get us to say things so they can have fun with us. But I like the tightness of the arguments here on the show. It's like, I didn't make a claim, but here's what I do know. And then we show them how it can't be a ball because there's no R. Well, then what is it? Well, I didn't make a claim of what it is. I'm just proving to you it's not a ball. Go figure it out yourself. I mean, it's like, what do you think it is? It's pretty simple.
I also like how the guy was telling us how I'm wanting to be convinced. I'm wanting you to convince me of something. It's like, let me get it straight. You've come here to preach to us about how the Earth's a sphere. You're trying to convince us. You're making the claims. You're making the declarations about sphere Earth. And yet you want us to swallow the idea, the notion that actually you're here to be convinced by us of something? No, you're not. You're here to preach the sphere. You're an evangelist for the sphere. And that's what you're here doing, trying to convince us, not the other way around.
Well, he admitted to Brian and I that the radii, or for others, the radius of a two-dimensional circle, of the circle of equal altitude, has to be straight and cannot curve. He admitted that.
Also, the sphere Earth is the positive assertion. So we're often put into a position where we're challenged to prove our claim of a flat Earth. It's like, the flat Earth is obvious and observable and declared by priests of the sphere belief also. It's also the way we navigate, it's also the way the maps work, so it's not a stretch to say it's flat. To say it's a sphere, on the other hand, is an extraordinary claim that doesn't need to stand as unchallengeable in the first instance with a new contender rolling into the ring. No. First prove your extraordinary claim that Earth's a sphere. You're going to need an R value to do that. But you need to prove your extraordinary claim in the first instance, not just stand by the fact that everyone else believes you around you, and then get me to prove my non-existent claim. Earth's obviously flat. That's not a claim. That's the nature of the world we actually experience and inhabit. And it's accepted by the people actually utilising the ground, navigating and building things. So you don't think I have to prove that to you? No. Not in the slightest. You have to prove that there's some crazy idea of antipodal people standing beneath my feet. That's the extraordinary claim. Not that everyone's on the same level surface, exactly as we observe it.
I love that. That's correct. That's my point. Well, I guess it's all our points. But I tell my son that all the time. You have this crazy claim that we're on a spinning water ball when it's obviously and observably flat. So now you have to prove that to me, to the world, and you just can't. The more and more you think about it, the more and more silly it is.
Isn't it obviously out of motion as well?
Again about motion?
I mean, as you just stated that it's obviously and observably flat, I mean it's observably and obviously in a way without motion as well.
Exactly. They're justifications for why we don't notice the motion that they claim we have. When we point out an effect that we should see, i.e. drift at 15 degrees an hour precisely as they claim, not happening. So they say there should be drift, we show there isn't, and then they start to justify why they haven't got the drift they claim they're supposed to see on a sphere with movement that we don't observe, don't detect in any way, shape or form, and there is no effect of drift to observe to prove it either. It's like, no, everything's pointing in one direction, that we're not moving in any way, shape or form, certainly not spinning at stupid thousands of miles an hour around a sun. That's preposterous. Definitely
yeah,
not.
And then they commit the next logical fallacy and say it's an inertial system, or...
Exactly, immediately beg the question of the thing they're trying to prove. Well, we already know we're in motion. So let's explain why we're not detecting it, rather than explain and prove that we are actually in motion.
Well, when it only exists in the maths, how are you ever going to show it in reality?
When you show them that they have a correlation between what they claim in the maths, that would be 15 degrees an hour drift, Coriolis deflection, as we turn beneath things, not attached in an inertial reference frame, travelling over a non-inertial spinning reference frame, well, that would have the drift they claim we should see, and when we don't see it, we don't see it. So there's no proof we spin, because drift would be the proof we spin, and we don't observe that. Now, roll on, the anti-flat earthers have already rolled down the hill and heard us point out that there's no drift at 15 degrees an hour, to tell us all about how actually we wouldn't expect to see any drift. One reference frame, no drift. Hey, Adam.
Afternoon, guys. You all right?
Gotta stop giving Arwin thumbnails. Gotta tell him to do it himself. Like I'm telling you. Because that's reasonable.
Yeah, he came up with that one. I thought, oh, okay. If he catches me at the right time. We're going to do him one more for his 1000th show, I think, though.
Then he needs to do his own damn thumbnails.
He did a couple, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to do him 1000th, the one for his 1000th show, because he's on 991 today, isn't he? So next week.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
But I do enjoy doing it, if I'm being honest.
I mean, fair enough. Far be it for me to stop you helping him, but by the same token, you give a man a fish and all that. What did you say, Stag?
Speaking of fish, Tommy Salami says that. Oh, good morning, by the way. Tommy Salami says that Columbus used sextants to measure angles, and then required nods of the globe to navigate. So I thought he could join live stream and tell us all about it.
Can he hear you saying that, or have you just typed it to him in chat?
I think he's in live stream right now. How you doing, Tommy?
He's on server mute.
Be able to get off
Sorry,
mute.
my bad, Tommy. I had you on server mute. You have to find your way to your own local mute button, Tommy. Can you hear us, Tommy? Tommy! Tommy. Hello? Tommy? You're in a live stream. Chat. Not responding. You don't need to be here if you don't want to talk to us. It's a voice chat.
King Deegs here. Good morning, Nathan.
Hello. Good to have you.
He said, "Hang on." Tommy Salami said, "Hang on." I guess
Might
he'll
have
be
an
back.
issue. He's dropped. Maybe he'll rejoin. We shall see. I'm intrigued to hear an actual rebuttal, a live rebuttal. We've had a couple of people make pre-recorded videos from echo chambers that make the claim that you can do triangulation on a sphere, only to then disclaim at the end of their video that you actually have to do it on a flat plane. Of course, that could just be because we need to assume it's flat at the end of doing it flat. That was the excuse by the one guy.
Yeah, he said they measure angles. I was like, angles? They use those angles to navigate properly without getting lost. Requires knowledge of a globe. I'm like, okay, angles require a globe. All right, just come on, man, join.
Hey, Nathan, do you know who Eddie Bravo is?
Yes.
Are you aware that he actually shouted you out?
Yes. About a year and a half ago.
He's very well aware.
But I think he did it again recently, though.
He might have shouted out that show that we were all talking about with Going Postal because it had 4,500 views in the first day, which makes me think somebody of note shared it. Probably him. I can't track down who shared it. I can't see in my stats where the traffic's come from. It doesn't give me a direct indication any more than any other video that it's been a specific thing that's made the traffic come, that's given me a video 4 times more popular than it typically would be. So, I want to know why that's happened. So you look into it and go, I want to know why, and I don't. But that could be the reason. I don't want to say it is. It might be that he shared that particular show. Or somebody of note, or maybe several people, or maybe everyone watching and it's just dozens of people all sharing it to 2 or 3 people. I don't know.
No, but I know Eddie loves that stuff, boy. That's right up his alley. He must have been salivating listening to that.
He's a fighter, isn't he? So somebody getting a verbal smackdown is going to be appealing to a fighter, I would imagine.
Correct, yes.
Probably why it makes its way into wrestling. The added drama of the verbal smackdown between the 2 wrestlers. You're trying to cheat with my wife. Well, I'm going to Royal Rumble you.
Well, while we're waiting, go to Masterbeat, Nathan. I put up 3 pictures of a software that Brian's Logic referred me to. That's a download from Apple for Circle of Equal Altitude, and then 2 articles. Well, it's article part 1, part 2 on the history of the sextant.
This giant globe style diagram that you want.
Yeah.
Okay, that's up. I've got the first slide.
What do you see on the first slide? Which is it, the green circle or the red?
Ask a colourblind man what colours he sees.
Oh, that's right. Is the sun over Cambodia or?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So I just downloaded it yesterday and took a little while, so I just got up early this morning and played around with it. So I did 2 circle of equal altitude there, and you can see in the picture where the sun is on the first one, the green circle, and then the red one. And if you go to the third picture, it shows where the boat is. Now, obviously, if you're on the boat, you're not going to be where it crosses on land. It's got to be where it crosses in the ocean. And if you're using a sextant, then you got to get the GP of that sun. That's got to be a right angle for triangulation, and the baseline's got to be a radius, the zenith distance from the GP of the sun to your boat. Even though they've got it overlaid on the globe, it can't work this way because the surface can't be curved to get the angle.
Exactly. Perfect. I like this example with 2. So I don't know if people picked up on what 10th man just explained, but if you look at the crossover point for these 2 areas of equal altitude, the 2 circles, yes, they're depicted on a sphere. You can't even see the backside of the area of equal altitude because curve's in the way. So obviously it's not done this way. Nevertheless, you've got 2 points that you cross. You actually don't need a third. Why? Well, because where they cross up here is on land. So obviously you're not going to be at that position if you're out on a boat. Therefore, you don't need to make the third triangle. Well, third triangle and third radius circle of equal altitude because this is the only position you can be. Now, if he was further down, or she was further down in this boat, and admittedly, the way this is scaled, you'd probably still get pretty close to the land at this position. You'd probably, I don't know. Either way, if it was in open ocean, so the 2 positions were crossing over here and here, then you would need your third because both positions are in open ocean and you can't tell which of the 2 where they cross over. In this instance, one crosses here, one crosses here. You're not going to be able to be in this position, therefore third not required. But if the position was further down, then potentially, your first crossing position would be up here and the second down here. Therefore, you would need a third triangulation to be done to get your exact position, or exact fix as it's known. Very good. I like it. Thanks, 10th. Any more to add?
No, it's just a cool software. I'm going to try to learn it. I just got up to the quickie there, but there's some time I have to spend on it just to figure it out. But then I put 2 articles. It's part 1, part 2 on the history of the sextants for anyone.
Sorry?
We're waiting for this Tommy guy to come on, I guess.
Is it possible to follow the visual presentation anywhere?
No, because it's come internally to us on the presentation, so it goes out to the audience when this is broadcast. But for the moment, unless somebody sticks it in Discord, no, you can't.
Oh, all right. It's okay.
Sorry. But the history of sextant is... hold on one second, guys. So it's on screen now. I've got 5 minutes of button pressing if you want to talk through the history of the sextant with a picture of an old chap at the top.
I'll post in Discord for the people.
Can you fill 5 minutes, 10th, with this?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought I was going to let him finish. Yeah. So this guy, Peter Ifland, he's going through the evolution of how they navigate it. And he'll start with the first picture is called the Kamal. And then if you scroll down, an astrolabe, astronomer's astrolabe, the Arabic astronomer's astrolabe, 1790. Go down, the next picture is mariner's brass quadrant. Okay, there's your vertical there that's showing the zenith, looks like. And then you've got the next one, the beautiful mariner's astrolabe made by Lisbon, 1608. And then they show an astrolabe in use in that next depiction. Then something Columbus would have probably used is a cross staff as well. It shows what that is. They're all to measure angles, basically. And then it shows the cross staff in use in the next picture. And then something called the Davis quadrant, 1711. And then the diagram of a sextant. And then 1760, Early Hadley octant. Follow down to the early sextant by John Bird, 1759. Then a brass sextant by Dolland. The ebony sextant, and then followed by 6 of them in a picture there, different designs. And go ahead and go to the next page. Then he wraps it up with the modern sextant. And there's your history of the sextant. An angle measuring device. And what's an angle? 2 straight lines creating a corner, a vertex. So if you're going to use a sextant, you've got to use straight lines. That's why the circle of equal altitude to the GP, the baseline is straight. That's why you do a dip correction to get your eyeball from the top of the boat to the top of the water line. So your baseline is true because it's a very sensitive device and it's very accurate when you make the adjustments.
Excellent. Was that your background noise, 10th? Doing something else?
No, I went on mute. But I don't think that guy's coming. He said he was going to come and talk about sextant, but they got a problem, Nathan, because it measures an angle between 2 objects. The horizon is one, and the sun, star, or a luminary, one of the 64 luminaries used for navigation, has to have a ground position on the Earth. And you're just measuring from the use of the nautical almanac and time, when you take your reading, where that star is over the Earth. So you're basically bringing the star down to the Earth, giving it an address called the GP, and you need that baseline to be straight to where you are using the sextant to achieve that angle. There's no way to achieve an angle with a curved line. And if the sextant is an angle measuring device, it can't work on the curved surface. It's definitely over right there by description.
Yeah, agreed. It's not going to perform its function if it's working on a curved surface. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, there's no further arguments of, oh, what about this? What about that? Please get another instrument that could do what you say, because to get an angle, you need 2 straight lines. That's the definition of an angle, meeting at a corner. I mean, the only way around it for them is to say it's not an angle measuring device, but it's too late for that because throughout history, it's an angle measuring device.
We're going to get it. We'll get people denying the nature of what a sextant is eventually.
Or use something other than the horizon to measure the angle too.
That's not what it's done.
You can't, because that's how it's the instructions in the sextant manuals, as well as navigators from beginning of it. You have to use the horizon.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Neil, Adam Meakin, 10th Man, Arwin joining during my intro, and a whole bunch of people. Oh, Eli as well, my bad. And a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Beautiful greetings, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Afternoon.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. Welcome. Did we get the dude that disappeared that was trying to get into the conversation come back in or not?
Yeah, he's not going to join. He appealed a format fallacy.
Yeah,
Appeal to
Nathan,
format.
there's really
No, fill us
there's
in.
really bad
Hold on,
bad
guys.
feedback.
Hold on,
when
almost
someone
exactly.
speaks from Discord.
Just hold on. Just hold on. Middle of a sentence with this Stagoli guy. Bear with me. So you said he appealed to format fallacy. What does that mean?
Well, they just talk about your attitude and how you're mean and rude and stuff like that. So it's just another way to be scared, I guess.
I'm mean. I'm in the minority. I'm generally ridiculed by the majority of the westernized world. And yet this guy's scared to come in to tell us how he knows the Earth's a sphere. Isn't that very telling?
Yeah, and we're online. It's like, what do you think he's going to do to you? I don't understand. It's just, I think they know their arguments are shit, and that you'll. I'm sorry for my language. That their arguments are trash, and that they'll just get devoured. So
Good.
that's what it is.
Good. I'm glad this guy fears me. You should. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
You're going to need R for that.
Yes, you need a radius for that. And I just want to say one thing. If you got great proof, how come you're not in here challenging this flat earth nonsense? I mean, geez, if I had the proof, I'd be here every day hammering this Nathan Oakley character.
Obviously, Neil, being in the majority and having most people behind you with an automatic assumption that you are correct would mean that we're terribly scary and you need a quote-unquote neutral platform with a globe-believing moderator to challenge us when we challenge them on their extraordinary claim that the Earth is a sphere with a physical horizon and drop and so on and so forth, based on R. Any evidence of the R value?
No, MIA. Missing in action.
Well, it was kind of gunned down in action, really, wasn't it? Dear Mrs. R fought really hard in the war for Globe Earth, but unfortunately, he died a hero. R will never be forgotten.
Killed by fatigued out Black Swan.
His brother G
Black Swans are killed.
fights on, mortally wounded.
Brother G.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
You need R for that too.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I was going to do the distance to the sun.
Somebody already took it, said you need R for that.
Requires R.
No, but you can use a sextant to determine it.
Determine what? The height of the sun?
Yep, you just take the right angle, your angle, and the adjacent, and you can calculate the opposite.
Okay. And how have you verified that that intangible object has that actual locational position, as opposed to being a useful guide for the ground below you? The fact that you can take a measurement to this object and utilise it for triangulation to gain the position, and it works, doesn't mean that you can infer the height of the intangible object you're utilising in this particular example. Now, if you're going to quiz me on why it works, I don't know. I can't give you an answer to that. I know it does, and I know how it works and what they do, which is kind of paradoxical if I turn around and say, yeah, but you can't then use this not actual size of an item in the sky, to say that you do know its actual position. Furthermore, if you try and get more than one fix on that particular position in the sky, you'll have to do it from multiple locations, and they'll all have different triangulation positions for it. So it's an intangible object. The bottom line is, in terms of its useful nature to gather information about your local position on the ground, yes. In terms of your gathering its position in the sky, no. Unless you want to verify it. I mean, I'm saying it's an intangible object, or the stars for that matter, but if you can verify its actual location, then I'm more than happy to accept its height. Until then, I'm not.
What if I just talk through you when you're giving me a response? Does that help?
Well, I'm not giving you a response. I'm kind of weaseling away from a response. If anything, I'm giving you a paradoxical answer when we try and describe how triangulation works. Now, the way it works is to assume that they're all at the exact same elevation. And when you assume that, it all works out perfectly with right-angled triangles on the ground beneath you. Cushy, right? Until someone like you comes along and says, well, why can't I just use that for the star itself and get its height? And I go, well, because you haven't actually verified where it is in three-dimensional space in that position. You go, well, it works though, doesn't it? And I go, yeah, it does. Well, why does it work? Could be your next question. And I'd go, I don't know. All I know is how it works, with a 90-degree angle to the GP of the star. Well, that position below it, with an angle to it, does give you 90 degrees, can be triangulated, and will give you a position. But do I then accept that that is the actual height of all of the stars? It could be. I don't want to say it isn't that height, because I don't know that either, do I? I haven't invalidated it either. But when someone comes along and says it is, like a flat earther, I'll challenge them to prove it. And triangulating an intangible object, I wouldn't accept.
I could give see, those are known as vertical section measurements. So like if you're by the coastline and there's two lighthouses, you go to your chart and it says on the chart the height of those lighthouses, say 180 feet for one and 200 feet for the other. And it tells you the cliff that it sits on, the height above mean sea level. And you know those things. And then you're able to do the same thing you do with the sun, with the lighthouse, because what you do is you bring the lighthouse down with the mirror to the sea, to the horizon, where the shoreline is. So they do it off land for vertical, but it's the same out in the open ocean for one of the 64 navigational stars the same way. But we don't have a chart for it. We don't know those things that we know about the lighthouse and the cliff. I don't know if that helps a little bit.
Well, I've thought of a better example while you were saying that, which is to say that to gain your first angle, you're taking it from the horizon. Would I therefore infer that I can triangulate an actual position for the horizon? Well, no. But I'm sure I could definitely get 3 people to triangulate it and attempt to measure a physical actual location for that first acquired to get you the 90 degrees. Regardless of how far out the line's drawn, you've still got something in your viewfinder, haven't you? The horizon. Does that mean I can triangulate it, though? No. What about the star itself? You're using it at a set altitude and then drawing a 90-degree assumption with parallel lines to all of the positions below the point of the star. Well, the bit that I accept is, well, then you're getting the accurate point below the star on the ground, which is what you need. But in terms of how high it is from the angle you measure, yes, you can ascribe a number to it, but can you actually go there? No more than you can go to the horizon.
Also, there's the horizontal angle, but you have to turn your sextant sideways and bring the lighthouse to the other one to see the angle difference between the two lighthouses. So that's not vertical, that's horizontal, but you got to turn your sextant sideways. So there's 2 ways the sextant works. You can even do that with the stars in the sky, a horizontal angle, like moving a star to another star and seeing what the angular difference is.
I did not know that. So my horizon example is identical then. So you can do the same thing with 2 positions in the sky and gain your angle with the sextant sideways. I'm glad you've said that. Perfect timing. So you can use two intangible objects and still gain an angle from your position and still navigate, and it still works. Still needs a 90 degree to be capable of I would assume it's your zenith at that point, right?
Well, you're just measuring from one star to the other, and I guess they do the theodolite works the same way. When they aim at a star and move the other way. I have never used a theodolite, but it's got the same concept.
Okay. Maybe needs a bit of inquiry. But in the same way as I'm asserting that you couldn't use the first position that you gained your 90 degree on a flat plane, that's the assumption that must be in place to work. But it doesn't mean that the position you've used to gain that angle is a physical location, in this case the horizon, and the same applies to the star. The fact that you can work out the angle, the fact that you can drop a location that's directly below that star at that given location at that given time, based on your almanac, does actually work and does actually require the ground be flat. Doesn't mean that I can give you a position for a star in its three-dimensional space. It doesn't mean I can give you a position for the horizon in three-dimensional space. Doesn't mean I can tell you what those things are either. Give you a fair idea if our push came to shove about the horizon, but certainly not the stars.
Well, let me give you the reason why they used the horizon, because I'm more familiar with that. In researching the sextant since January 2020, they used the horizon because you can see it, and it's flat and it's horizontal, right, straight. And you need a 90. Well, that forms your baseline for your 90, because if you get the horizon, then straight above you is 90. If you tried it the other way around, it's impossible, especially on a ship that's in the water. It's hard to get the vertical to be your first solid line. So what they do is they use the horizon, because it's not like you're near land and you got a shoreline that you could shoot. You're in the middle of the ocean. What's your point of reference? Well, it's the horizon. So that's your baseline. Once you have a baseline, straight up is 90. But try it the other way around. It's very difficult. So that's why everything has to be brought down to the horizon. And since in the book, they got the 64 navigational stars positioned every hour, every minute, every second of the day and night, you're able to reference that to triangulate. But again, it goes back to angles, and you need a 90 right angle from the GP to you and to the star. That's why you see the square box and all the images that they put out. Flat earthers didn't put that 90 degree box there. That's how it actually works. People using the sextant are led to believe it works on the globe, but it doesn't, because you can't achieve an angle with a curved surface. That's just preposterous.
Yeah, so what I was saying in the pre-show about that is, like, you know, with the depiction of the globe and the two circles on it where you can't see the rest of the circle in red. And the thing about that is, so if you're taking a reading from the horizon and the horizon is curving away from you and it's only straight for 4 miles, 5 miles, it's going to go straight out into the space. The line is not going to meet the GP of the star overhead.
Correct.
So.
Yes, that's correct. I just hold on. I've got a depiction of that. There we go. So what Eli's just explained is on screen for the audience. You've got your zenith. You've then got the GP of the star, which will be considered to be below at 90 degrees from where you measure it. So in terms of this depiction, it would be along this line. That's the angle. If you're at this position where it says zenith, meeting the bottom of this crazy notion of the ground curving away from you, that would put it lower in three-dimensional space, and it wouldn't give you the 90-degree angle that you must have in order to triangulate it. So in terms of this depiction, the 90-degree point would be below this line on the top of the sphere. Now, in yesterday's episode of Flat Earth Debate, 10th Man took us through how they take this line, which is the equator, and simply transpose it up on top of the sphere for the measurements to actually take place, ignoring the fact that you've got an 8 inches per mile squared drop from your position in all directions, making it impossible, if you actually take the assumed curved surface of the ground beneath your feet, which it is not, you can't acquire the 90-degree angle to the star that you're triangulating. So it fails. Yes, Eli.
Wait, they always talk about it having to be perpendicular. Someone please explain what perpendicular is.
So in the same depiction, you've got your star with extra lines being drawn in to 90 degrees to the flat surface to give you 90 degrees to this first star. That's parallel, the line of the GP from the top to the bottom on the ground is parallel with the zenith at your position. So this line is parallel with the line to the GP of the star, where you get 90 degrees here. Well, the same thing would apply to a star that was above this position. So if we say this line represents where this star is going to be for our second triangulation point, then it would be below, at this point, 90 degrees to the angle you've measured up to the star. Well, that line has to also be parallel. So this line with the GP of the star below it, this line which meets your zenith, and this line for the GP of the star that you're triangulating on the other side, all must be parallel for it to work. They all must have 90 degrees for it to work. It cannot be curving away from you, as Eli's pointed out, because then it puts it in a different position in three-dimensional space.
Good morning, peeps.
Good morning, Chocolate. Are you there, Adam?
Chocolate.
Hold on, was that...
I am, yeah, I'm back, mate. Sorry, just...
I think there's somebody trying to get a word in from Discord. We'll just get the opinions from Discord, then I want to talk about our base measurements of star distances. Go ahead, whoever it was from Discord.
Yeah,
Eric, go ahead.
that was me. So, like, originally we started talking about the sextant because I was talking about the distance to the sun. That was the question, like the housekeeping question. So, like, I'm still learning about the sextant and how it works exactly, but forgive me if I don't understand this correctly. So in we're not actually doing trigonometry. We're just referencing the almanac to get the adjacent line across the bottom, right? Is that right?
No.
Huh?
No. Your almanac will tell you where the star is above geographically. So where on the ground is that star above when you measure it? That's what the almanac will tell you. The first line is acquired from the horizon.
So that gives you but that's called the adjacent, and like in trigonometry, that's called the adjacent line, right? But you don't have to calculate if you didn't have the almanac at all, and you just took you knew that there was the star was in its position, it was straight a right angle to the ground, and you had your angle from you to the star, and you had no lengths of the height to the star or the adjacent, like it's called the opposite and adjacent, right? You can't do trigonometry, right?
If you don't have the position to the line where it is, so you can draw a circle to position yourself on the outside edge of the circle, then no, you couldn't do it. You'd need to know where it was. You're trying to figure out where you are based on where they are. They're always where they're going to be, and we know that to the second. So that's why you're using that as your reference. You don't know where you are, and you're saying, well, I know where that star is, so let's figure out where I am by way of triangulation. Without that information, no, you're dead in the water. Unfortunately, that's...
Yeah, exactly. That's why you need the almanac, right? Because it tells you where the star is, so you can continue with your trigonometry.
Correct.
So now, if you assume the height of the sun, right? Like by doing trigonometry in the first place, now you know what you assume is the height of the sun or the distance to the sun. You could you not like start plotting like say you lost your almanac and you just like left the coast, right? Could you not just use the assumed height of the sun to calculate your adjacent line and then plot yourself as you go without an almanac?
No, because you don't know where the sun's positionally either, do you? You don't know where it's over. You're just looking at the sun. If you're an open ocean, you've got nothing to look at, and you've just got the sun, and you don't know where is that sun over at that particular point, how are you supposed to use it for anything useful?
Because you know it's at a 90, and then you have your angle, and then you can use, I can't remember if it's sine, cosine, or tan. You have one side of the triangle.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is
But
the
where do
height.
you place? Yeah, but on the ground, where do you place the GP of the star to draw your first line out? So you're drawing a line with the sextant to the horizon, but that line may be before the horizon, but just for the sake of example, we'll say it's beyond the horizon. Or you've got to find that position on the ground below the sun in this example to put your compass into the map and draw a circle around it.
Maybe I'm not getting it, so I still have to study more.
This is complicated, don't worry. I'm lucky because for 12 months solid, I was drip-fed the information by 10th Man. I can't believe I know the answer to this, to be perfectly honest. There we go.
It's the same for me. Like, I'm on the internet's just, dropping stink bombs everywhere. And I'm like, how do I know this? Thanks, 10th.
Exactly. I do exactly the same thing in the shower. Like, how did I have that row? Oh yeah, thanks, Quantum Eraser. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy subject to wrap your head around. And this is advanced globe debunking, flat earth proof. Very advanced. I've come across this subject before. It never sank in. The importance it just wasn't relevant to me. It didn't seem that important. And it takes someone like 10th Man to dig into it in a deep way after the Black Swan and say, right, well, how can we expand upon this? If they're utilising a dip angle measurement to a physical assumed horizon, and it's not a physical horizon to get a dip angle measurement for, what is it actually being used for? Well, it's being used to acquire 90 degrees out to an infinite expanse. Could be literally as far as you like away. It's the only limitation being the perspective to the star that drops towards the horizon as you move from it. Now, when you get to a certain point, there's a certain amount of crap in the air that you've got to get around anyway. So they don't advise you do it beneath about 10 or 15 degrees because it distorts the position as you look through a lot of air. Now, that's actual refraction. Light deviating from straight. That's all refraction is. Not to be confused with 7/6 of a radius value terrestrial refraction in standard form, or any variation of a R-based assumption, i.e. light bending through an atmosphere. Sphere-shaped air. Does light deviate from straight? Yes. It's refraction. Does light deviate through straight when travelling through an assumed sphere-shaped air? No. But that's what they will infer. So what are you left with? You're left with a measurement that's being taken to the horizon, and the only additional step is to take your eye line down to the ground that you're assuming is straight to an infinite distance that you can see below a star. Not infinite, but I can't give a value to it off the top of my head during this ramble. So that's it. That's the information you got to go on. The ground beneath me is flat. And how will I get it? Well, I'll look out at what is essentially my eye level. Now, my eye level might be higher than the ground, so I'll reduce it down to the ground. Then I've got level. And anything that meets it, intersects it below it, is at 90 degrees to it, on the level plane that I'm measuring out to. All you then need is the extra bit of the triangle, and you can do triangulation. That's it. It's just that simple.
You know what's crazy? My hand sort of looks like a protractor or a sextant. Like you point the thumb straight up 90 degrees, and then you have your pinky and it's pointed straight out.
You talking about doing finger guns? You're doing finger guns right now?
Well, no. Well, I guess you could do finger gun, but actually, I have my hand open all the way, and I can only imagine that the fingers can be used for degrees, because that's what it looks like to me. And that's what people have said that they have used their hands for. I'm going to look into that. I mean, I could just be making stuff up.
They do, Eli.
Yeah, I saw images of that on Google.
Yeah, just go look at it. Like one finger is 1 degree, and then they use a fist. I can't remember where the fist is. And then they open up the thumb and the pinky way out. And I think that's 20-something degrees. And you can just point at the sky, or you can work from the horizon up to a star. And that's how they did it when they didn't have it.
See, I mean, but see, if you don't have the mental flexibility to think about these things, well, let me say it like this. The only reason that I would think of that is because I've actually looked into it. I didn't take what 10th Man said like other good little students, you know, in these schools and go, oh, yeah, what you said is right. I'm going to go with that. Like, I'm trying to figure out how it's useful, how it's practical, how it works.
I mean, in this case, it's practical and useful for finding your direction when navigating. Something I'd want to learn, right? If I was going to go out to sea and investigate and explore, I'd want to know how to do this. I'd want to know how to do it so well that I could do it without having to look up anything. So I could just do the rough maths on a napkin.
Did you see the perpendicular slide I put up in Masterbase?
No, but I'll get it. Okay, it's on screen now.
Yeah, all right. What's that box there? What's that box saying?
90. This blue box.
Yeah. All right, well, just go read on the sextant from the baller's view. I don't care. It's got to be that. That's your baseline, meeting the GP of the sun or star. It's got to be perpendicular. 2 straight lines or 1 straight line, 1 curved line. Which one is it?
It's 2 straight lines. You're never going to achieve triangulation on a sphere. This is another globe killer. It's also a flat earth proof, because you can't do it on a curved surface. In order for it to work, it must be flat. You must assume that the ground on the maps is also flat and corresponding to a flat measurement that you take to the GP of the star. So in every respect, this is being done flat.
Yeah, I was listening to, Brian told me to listen to Brandon's show, and I don't go to other shows, so I don't have time for it. But I guess it was last Friday's show, and they were talking about the sextant, and Adam was on it with Brian's logic, and so I said, well, send it to me. He says, yeah, just scroll along, maybe 1 hour mark. So I did, and so there's this guy there, and I think his name was Kool-Aid, I'm not sure. He said that he's a sailor and used the sextant, but he never did a dip correction. And it said it's a nothing. There's nothing to it. You just aim at the horizon. And so Brian had to remind him that, hey, if you're 10 feet up on the boat, plus if you're a 6-foot man, that's 16 feet you got to minus in your dip correction to get to your eyeballs to be on the surface of the water for that baseline. So I guess what I'm trying to say is people who are familiar with the sextant really don't know how it works. And if he says he does, and he didn't even know what a dip angle correction was, what does that tell you about their knowledge of the sextant? I mean, all you got to do is just go out there and watch a few videos and read the manual of a couple of sextant manufacturers. It's like one of the most important things you got to do, because you got to get it to 0. You didn't even know about it.
Doesn't surprise me. Somebody from the chat, James2, says, what's GP? So on screen you've got this guy, and I don't quite know why the sextant's coming out of his crotch, but it is. Nevertheless, despite the fact that this guy using his dick for a sextant, he's got the angle up to the star. The GP would be the straight line that comes down to meet at 90 degrees to the parallel surface that you're measuring to get a triangle. So you've got a 90-degree triangle, the 90 degree will be here to the GP. So the GP is the position below the star, so that you can draw this line as a radius, which would mean that you can draw a circle on your map all the way around the central point of that GP. So the star's position on the ground below where it meets at 90 degrees to your position with this guy's genital sextant. Let's find a different picture.
I'm not able to see what you're showing. What was that all about?
A guy with the angle coming out of his crotch for some reason. I don't know why.
Wow.
Next picture, circle of equal altitude. So in the same depiction that I've just shown you, you had the star and the GP would be on the ground. This would be where the guy was standing, measuring an angle up to it with the GP below it, and then any of these lines, because you could be at any position when you take your first measurement around this circle. So you've got a radius value, so you can literally stick a compass into your map and draw a circle, and that gives you your area of equal altitude below the GP of the star. You might need 2, you might need 3 in order to find a position where they cross, and that will give you your fix. Hope that answers your question, James.
I got a slide for you in Master B, Nathan, that I made up.
Okay.
Sextant works on a plane with light at funny angles. I'm sorry, there's the one before that. I haven't sent you that one. How a sextant actually works. 90 degrees, the zenith position of a star here, the sun. The GP would be directly underneath. There's your perpendicular. And 3 sailboats representing where 3 navigators might be in the angles to that GP. And there would be a circle of equal altitudes for all 3. And that baseline has to be flat in order to triangulate. It's got to have a right angle. There's no other way.
Shout out to Rob L. He says, the year of the sextant. Well done, 10th man. Yeah, I totally agree. Good call out for props. So I hope, again, this answers your question. Much better diagram, so as it's an actual depiction of how a GP works. So if you were at this first position in this sailboat, in this example, we're going to assume that the horizon is actually prior to the GP of the star. So you measure out to, this is going to be your horizon, albeit in Muppet vision. Yes, I'll grant you it's Muppet vision. Anyway, you're measuring out 90 degrees to this position. So if you're saying, right, I'll stick my sextant on the horizon, you're measuring this position over here. And you're assuming that the line between you and it is a flat line, so that when you measure your angle to the light that you're looking at in the sky, you can have it meet at the ground at a 90 degree angle. Don't mention the 90 degree angle!
I got some more coming for you.
Okie doke. Thanks again for the super chat, by the way, Rob L. Really appreciate the support.
Before you flick that picture, I noticed Mitchell from Australia on this week, and this is a great example of what I know. We were talking about taking a drone out and measuring its angle, and he actually did it in reality, which I thought was cool to exemplify the point. Whether that sun on that diagram's a drone or not, you can see that the premise of the measuring of the angle is perspective, and it's telling you where it is relative to those 2 planes, the one attained on the bottom by your sextant and the one on the top. So the GP and the angle, the commensurate angle you get from it, relates, as we've said, to the ground position. The further away it is, the further away that ground position is, the further away the sun, the star in the sky is, and therefore the lower the angle will be, less, the smaller the angle will be. The closer you are to it, the greater the angle will be, as demonstrated by the boats. That's the principle of using the sextant, and it's based on that. And when we go back, if we can go back in a bit to Tim's other pictures, just want to remember that little bit. That's the principle. The angle that's generated is because of distance on the plane across the 2 planes. But that worked, yeah. This is quite interesting. I think I'll throw a few numbers out there. So 10th did that, and if you look at the other picture, Nathan, where you're close in on the Gulf Coast, so you can see the sun. There, I just did a quick measurement between where the sun's position was and where the arc. That's it. Now, the way I took the top of the arc, which turned out to be somewhere in Armenia, and that's 3,100 kilometers. which as a ball destroying point, what I would say across that, there would be 759 kilometers of drop, which wouldn't be accounted for. So you wouldn't have your straight baseline in terms of applying it to the ball. But that distance is also interesting because when I worked out the drop, you get, I do it via trig as well. And when you apply the cosine to it, it comes out that you're calculating a traversement distance. Then this is the sphere ball distance, or a real distance. You calculate 28 degrees before you apply the cosine to it, which mathematically is interesting, because when the ballers talk about their 69 miles per degree of movement, okay, they attribute that to rotation. And if you take that 3,000 kilometers is 1950 miles, divide it by 69, you get the same 28 degrees. And that's what they're attributing it to, is that curvature. That's what they try and claim. But there's actually, so when you apply it like that, you can create a ball. But the reality is that 28 degrees is 28 degrees out of kilter, and also 759 kilometers out on your triangles. So I think yesterday when you're showing that they have to calculate it flat, and what they then do is pervert it back with this assumption of 1 degree per 69 miles, which then lets you pretend that every single bit of angular difference is due to your position, and therefore the consequent curvature difference it creates, as opposed to any effect of perspective, as nicely demonstrated by the drone going across the lake.
Right, they've hijacked it.
Yeah.
This is where I actually beautifully wanted to segue across to you about exactly this. So first point, before we do, we'll come back to the 1 degree every 69 miles in a second, but this depiction on screen is incapable of giving you a radius, because the line to the outside edge of the area of equal altitude is now bent. So it's no longer giving you a radius for the circle that they've drawn. So where do they get the radius for the circle? Well, they'd have to draw a chord from this point and slice off the top of the sphere in order to do it. That's the first point. Back to your point about them hijacking perspective, they're taking 1 degree to mean 69 miles as they move away from something in terms of how it drops towards the horizon with perspective. But when they triangulate the stars, and this comes back to the guy's point from Discord when he was asking about triangulating the sun, they do it the other way round. That would be to say that they make the measurement, like I've said, no, it's not reasonable to triangulate that position in 3-dimensional space when you can't verify it. It's intangible. It's moving as you move. Well, that particular triangulation measurement is then taken to insert R after the fact, when the measurement's been taken, because it can't be done on a curved surface, to then give you your 69 degrees 1 mile, 1 degree, after insertion of R after triangulation on a flat plane. Correct, Adam?
Yeah, for it to work, what you've got to do is what I did, is to take the outside. So you've got to go into 3D spherical trigonometry, yeah, to get it to fit onto the map. If you just put that circle on, as they're claiming, it will be in a different place, you see, yeah? So then when they claim the 69 degrees, 69 miles per degree, that's what works on the surface of their ball, or on the flat plane with perspective. But what they can't do is do the sextant trig just straight onto the ball without the pre-assumption.
Exactly.
And the need for R.
Exactly. So in other words, the good thing about this particular proof for a flat Earth, I might say, it does also debunk the globe very nicely, I might add. But the reason this is a good flat Earth proof is because when they come to start justifying it, which a couple of them have gone to the efforts of doing, I will grant them that, that isn't how it's actually done. So you can say, well, we can do the spherical trig to draw a chord to get a radius for this GP. And you go, that's nice. However, that's not how it's done. There's no back engineering the sphere that you've assumed by taking triangulation measurements and adding R. Yeah? When you come back to actually just measuring the triangulation, There wasn't an R to begin with. Yeah, you added it after the fact. So when you've added it, to get back to doing the real triangulation, you've got to subtract it. You've got to get rid of the curve. And that's precisely how it's done. It's done on a flat plane. So trying to engineer it back in when it's absolutely crucial that it's not curved isn't a possibility anymore. So as much as they'd like to show us diagrams and say, well, this is how it's done on a sphere, well, that might be how it would be done on a sphere, but it isn't done that way when you're actually out at sea triangulating. It's done flat. That's a fact. As much as you can show me it being done in that way, that isn't how it's done. And it can't be done that way.
Can you just make that point that you just previously made about how they get the 69 degrees after inserting the presupposed radius?
Yeah, so they add it. It's a relatively well-known, if you've been around in the arena for a long time, Red Rhetoric video that was pulled apart by Smokescreen Design. And he shows the trig as Red Rhetoric talks his uninformed audience through the assumption of R. Here's how I do the triangulation. Here's where I insert the R value, because we already know we're on a sphere, so we've got to add this R value, says Red Rhetoric. Yeah, he just takes you through the maths of adding in the presupposition of an R value, which of course pushes the distance of the stars that he's measuring and triangulating out to astronomical distances when he's triangulating them. And look how close the maths comes when I just insert an R value. Now, I'll say it again because I said it at the beginning of the show. The starting point for that assumption where he inserts R is just the standard triangulation that I poo-poo when people come up with, 4,000 kilometres or something?
Yeah, about
5, yeah.
How many did you say? 5?
He's about nearer 5, isn't it? But
4,000 something and something. But yeah, you know, you can feel free to triangulate the horizon or the star if you like, but I don't know what it is, you don't know what it is, it's not a tangible item that you can get to and verify, so yes, it works, and it must work for the bit that's crucial. The position below the star on the ground, and the 90-degree angle for the flat plane that must meet it. Those are the only bits we need to use this as a flat Earth proof. In terms of where the stars are and how they work, it doesn't matter, they work. They do this actual work. This is when you're talking about maths doing work, the work of travelling around the place, not the maths of explaining away something that doesn't have a phenomena that's been conjured into existence through maths and then ascribed to something that occurs when you pick something up and drop it and is violated by gas law. Not that kind of mathematical work, but the kind of I can stick a compass on a map and say that below this star is the position that I'm going to draw 90 degrees out to and then a line directly down to that flat plane in order to figure out where the hell I am. That kind of life-saving work.
Nathan, do you remember in the past shows I said this kills the globe because of the circle of equal altitude? That GP to U holding the sextant has to be a straight line. It's a two-dimensional circle. It's got a radii, a radius. That's a straight line. So, and I said it just plows through refraction. I don't care what kind of refraction you want to put there, because it's got to be straight. So they've got a circle, a two-dimensional circle. They even call it a circle of equal altitude. And the sun's in the middle of it, and you're on one part of that circle. You just don't know where until you take your second reading. And for more precise fix, take a third reading. But that distance from the GP of the star to you, that radius is straight. They've got that on top of a sphere. It's not the sphere. It's not a sphere of equal altitude. It's a circle of equal altitude.
So let me ask you this.
Hang on. It's contradictory right there.
So let me ask you this, and please continue. So is circle a synonym for sphere? And then is there anything that is that a thing?
No, they're very different things.
Two-dimensional.
Circle's two-dimensional, sphere's three-dimensional.
Because they would definitely call it sphere of equal altitude if that had any meaning, right?
Well, no, you'd have to involve a chord. if you're cutting through the sphere to achieve the 90 as depicted on screen now, you've got to have a flat level surface to meet it at 90 degrees below the star at its GP. So, no, unless you slice off the top of the sphere, no. That's what Adam just went through. You can do it with the sphere back engineering it. Well, you could. If it was required, you'd have to. But it isn't, and they don't. Right, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah, but the only way you can do it is with R. You need the R to backwork it into the sphere. So that's why I said when I had to work out the distance, well, I've got a ratio within the sphere that every kilometre travelled on the surface of the sphere equates to 0.009 of a degree. So what I then have to do is take that and use that into my calculations. But I don't need to unless I want to pretend I'm doing it on a sphere. Or I could just do it flat and get the exact distance on the flat map with flat calculations. I don't have to go in there, but to do it, I have to pre-assume R and use that R in there for it to fit the ball.
And to push the line out and have the curved surface in the first instance, you've taken flat measurements to do triangulation, then inserted R.
A bit like Red's rhetoric. You know, you go, what you're doing there, you see, is you're bending. So when, like, Reds did it, and he said, oh, here's point person A, here's person B. Now, we're going to pre-assume R, so we're going to change the actual real life measurement and bend it, change the angle again based on R, based on how much he's travelled. So that's what Reds had to do to be on a ball, to put it into a ball for his mass to continue on a ball. And that's what you can do here, but you don't need to when you're on a boat at sea. You just keep it flat and it works.
I got some more slides there for you, Nathan.
Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Sextant works on a plane with light at funny angles. Is that the one?
Yeah, so since we know light is coming in divergent, corpuscular rays, it works. And here you are. This could be circle of equal altitude, where it's right in the middle is the GP and both distances. So from that sailboat from the left to right, it's say 3,000 miles, that radius of that circle, or all the way to the other end where there might be a boat. That'd be 6,000 miles of flat. It has to be perpendicular. You have to have that 90. This is the way the sextant works. And they do what you and Adam just talked about. After they measure it flat, they fool everybody and say it's on the globe. You can't put a two-dimensional circle with a straight radii on a globe. You lose a straight radius line, which means you don't have an angle anymore to the GP. It can't work. Sextant could only work on a flat surface. Need a zero baseline. Now, if they want to change what perpendicular means, and they want to change what a right angle triangle is, if they want to change what a zero baseline is, and fool themselves, go ahead.
This is epic. And painful. You know, for the people who've rolled down the hill that want to scramble their way back up in a delusional belief that they can become ignorant, globe-believing normies again. This is painful stuff. Yeah, we all know it's flat though, so this isn't at all painful for me. It doesn't affect me in the slightest. It's just, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It is just flat, so why wouldn't you do it this way?
That second slide.
Let me point out,
Eli, let me finish that
get...
second. Just let me finish that other slide. How a sextant cannot work, and it shows the curve. Do you see that one, Nathan?
How a sextant cannot work.
Yeah,
No.
It shows a tangent line and then a curved surface underneath with a boat with an X.
Oh, yes. Hey.
All right, so here's how it cannot work. This is what Adam was just describing with Nathan in the back and forth you just heard. So they measure it flat, the top line, and then they try to put it on the globe, the bottom curvature there. And they get away with the pictures because you ballers fall for it, but then you can't get an angle anymore because you can't get an angle with a curved surface. So obviously that sailboat that's on the curved line isn't shooting a 90-degree right angle to that sun's GP. The sailboat on top of the flat tangent line is able to get that angle to be achieved. So you can never achieve it from that curve. And what Brian has successfully shown everyone is you'd have to put a cord. You have to chop off that arc. Well, who's chopping off the arc to get it? It's nonsense.
Yeah, that's not being done. It's being done flat. Anyone
All right, Eli.
Go on, Eli.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, when the ballers in chat, say, oh, the reason I'm not getting on the show is just Nathan is rude, wants to be here, blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is, he was that way before I got to the show. You guys had no issues joining. You guys had no issues debating when you thought that there wasn't, objective truths to be had. And then when the Black Swan came along and this is where they began to drop off, because there really is no... Before, they could say something on video and it might sound dumb, but it might not, at least to them. But I don't think they can hear themselves talking about the Black Swan. And I think they know they sound dumb, but it's even more telling because no one has come on, not one, to say, you're wrong. I navigate, this is how it works. That's not how it works. Not once.
Instead, it's, don't talk about the 90 degrees. No.
That wasn't even here. That was somewhere else.
I know. They would never say that shit here. Fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's very interesting that, no, don't mention the 90 degrees. It's not needed. We're only measuring the angle to the star, and that's it. That's all we need. It's like, all right. Well, what about doing the triangulation bit? Don't you need the rest of the triangle for that? Where are you going to get that? From your curved surface? Well, let's show you where they get it from the curved surface. And they don't, do they? If this guy was triangulating this star, and he started with a tangent to his position, well, he's not going to acquire 90 degrees with that. Don't mention the 90. This is how it's actually done on this line. Yeah, just easy. Just line out from every position's flat. Because that's how the world actually is.
Well, they got a problem.
Nathan.
Hey, Brian.
Brian. Go on, Brian. I'll follow up.
No, I'd say what I say afterwards. Thank you. Go ahead, man.
Okay, yeah. So the whole point is the zenith position of the sun or one of the other 63 navigational stars over the Earth. That's what's in the Nautical Almanac. They don't have any other positions. They only have the zenith positions for these navigational stars. Now, what is that zenith? That's 90 degrees. That's directly overhead somewhere on the Earth. What do you mean don't mention 90 degrees? The whole book is about 90 degrees.
Yeah, so on that map, you're drawing 90-degree lines or dropping lines down from every star position to every point below it on the ground. They're not going to bend away from you relative to your position. That's just some nonsense you have to assume if you're on a sphere. Everything's relative to you standing on the top of it, bending away at 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that nonsense doesn't pad out when you've got parallel lines needed to triangulate your position. Suddenly, they've all got to be lining up on a flat plane with 90 degrees below all of them, meaning it's all flat.
Yeah, you need parallel zeniths. It doesn't work without parallel zeniths.
Right, and every parallel zenith's got 90 degrees meeting, and you can triangulate any amount of circles around it, and they'll all meet at 90 degrees, parallel zeniths for every single star, lots of lines dropping to the ground below from every single star. All parallel.
Adam's about to present something. Like, I talk in the after show.
Just to add to that, I like 10th picture. You know, the one I was talking about before, the 3D globe, where he's put the stuff on and I've done a few numbers. If we apply that sun stuff to here, and what's going to happen is this. So this is your new triangle that's formed. Now, no longer is this a right angle. Look, you can see that it's not supposed to be curved, but you can see it's become obtuse. It's now more than 90 degrees, and in actual fact on those you'd add the 28 degrees, so this angle now would be 118 degrees in their model when they convert it. So you can now see that there is no longer, when they place their measurements onto their ball, there is no longer a right angle. That right angle has been extended because it's come down there. Look, this bit's been, that's the lines they're drawing, supposedly. And like I say, this is the segment. But you can see why it perverts it, and you no longer have your right angle.
Perfect. It's nice having Adam on the show to actually scroll it out. No offense.
Oh, there's so many things you can do because, as I said, and I thank Adam for doing this, because the book for you to navigate by has all the stars at a zenith position over an Earth, perpendicular to the horizon. It's a 90. And for them to say, don't mention 90, then you might as well throw out the nautical almanac.
Throw it out.
Well, if you throw out the nautical almanac and all you got is a sextant, you don't know where the sun directly is overhead, and you're lost again.
Throw it out anyway.
There's no getting around it. The world that we actually dwell atop is actually flat. And as much as this is painful for some of the people watching, that's tough. That is just the world we live on.
When it comes to the fundamentals of navigation, would you say that they are jumping ship?
Very good, Eli.
They're all overboard, trying to drag us under as we try and swim away to shore.
Maybe we can get Max Planck here to help us.
Or Bob from Cork.
Jack, the boat, Jack.
Not the rum.
In the last few seconds, has anybody got anything to challenge this from Discord? I should really ask. Shockingly, no. Fair enough. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Yep. A shine on Harvey Moon. You don't need a 90-degree angle. Wind killer. Sextants don't rely on some path that follows the surface of the Earth. If you want to measure the altitude angle of an object above the horizon, you can simply point it at the object and point it at the horizon. It really is that simple. Just another thing Effie can't understand, says Shine on Harvey Moon.
I mean, he says you pointed at the horizon and the star, and he doesn't realize the horizon is your baseline zero?
So, yeah, point at the horizon, that gives you a flat line. Bearing in mind that your globe horizon's falling away at 9.8 inches per mile squared and is a physical geometric limitation to your view that's been debunked by the Black Swan. Also, back to 10th and my original point. That'd be a flat line you're drawing out then to get an angle in the first place, because you're not going to acquire one if it's curved. Shine on Harvey Moon. Bad dog.
He's worse than the bad dog. Let's assume that star of his is at 45 degrees. Well, how does he get in 45? Well, let me guess. Directly above him is 90, it's zenith. He's directly above him is 90, the stars are 45, and the horizon's at 0. Oh, that's how you got it. All right, thanks.
Next.
So just for shits and giggles, I'll say I've spent the last 40 minutes trying to explain to my coworker the difference between a theory and a scientific theory. After claiming to understand it, show me I don't understand.
So, a mystic Meg theory, otherwise known as colloquial theory, would be your guess at why something happens, mystic Meg style. A scientific theory would be the result of experimental data based on hypotheses, based on natural phenomena that you figured out the cause of. That would be a scientific theory. Colloquial theory, best guess.
Can I get you to say that again one more time?
Yeah. So, a colloquial theory, or mystic Meg theory, would be your best guess or best explanation for something you think might happen because you've had a good guess about it. That's a colloquial theory. I reckon this is that. That's colloquial theory. A scientific theory is the result of scientific experimentation based on hypotheses, based on natural phenomena that you're attempting to figure out the cause of. So that's a scientific theory.
Okay, so that's what I try to explain to him as well. But he's trying to tell me that gravity is not a theory. I don't know if it's a scientific theory or not. I mean, it seems like it would be because, you know, there's things to explain it. And those things are explainable. So,
but a scientific theory is based on hypothesis. So experimentation,
correct.
Then theory.
Which would be, yeah. So, and then they found out that it's factual, and now it's a scientific theory, correct?
No, hypothesis.
Well, hypothesis is a theory.
No, a theory is a theory. It comes after experimentation, which comes after hypothesis. So no, a hypothesis is a hypothesis, a theory is a theory. The first thing that comes before theory is hypothesis. So for gravity to be a theory, you'd need to have a hypothesis first.
Okay, so what you're telling me, just so I understand it, so you have a hypothesis or an idea, right? And then the idea becomes a theory. And then from a theory, you have scientific theory, which is actual factual theories, where an idea has then become a scientific theory.
No. A hypothesis, not an idea. You've substituted the word hypothesis for idea. Now, in pseudoscience, you accurately described how pseudoscience, just so stories, get described inaccurately by fraudsters as science. That's how your description pads out. Come up with an idea, that's a mystic Meg theory, and then say that you've done science, and then just call it a scientific theory. Whereas an actual science would be based on a hypothesis that's been validated. So validated hypotheses, that's experimental data, then becomes scientific theory.
You lost me now.
So first phenomena, then hypothesis, that's best guess for the explanation of the phenomena, then experiment, validate your best guess as the cause of the effect you're studying, then theory.
Well, I mean, he just told you the order, but all you did was ask him, well, instead of that order that you're telling me about, since I'm asking you, shouldn't you just put theory in front instead of behind? Why would you ask that?
Why would I ask?
That's fine. That's fine. So let me maybe I can explain it. Well, I don't think I could explain it better, but I'll try. So the hypothesis is a supposition. Okay, it's your guess as to what's causing the phenomena that you're observing, right? So once you do some experimentation to figure out that your supposition is correct or it could be incorrect, that would be the null hypothesis. The result is the theory. So you can't have.
Hold on, Eli. Hold on, Chocolate. Hold on, Eli.
The result would be a scientific theory, right?
I missed the first part. Hold on, everyone, shut up. Sorry, what's your name, madam?
Candy.
Candy. Can you repeat what you said, please?
I don't know. I'm lost now.
That's okay.
So it would be hypothesis, or no? You were saying it would be a theory, and then a hypothesis, and then a scientific theory, right? Because a hypothesis would explain the workings of a theory. Is that right?
Wrong. No. So you've just accurately described what actually happens when fraudsters claim science. Yeah? So you start off with the colloquial theory, claim you've operated it within a hypothesis, and then just say that the hypothesis was an explanation, therefore science, and then call it scientific theory. That's pseudoscience in essence. That's what happens with things like gravity. So in a way, you're right, that's what the public is led to believe is science. So I appreciate and empathise that you could give it as the description. But where you say that the hypothesis is an explanation, it isn't. It's your presumed explanation that hasn't been validated yet. So, and it's your explanation for something that's occurred. So the first thing that needs to be established if you're doing science, in this case gravity, is what's the phenomena observed? What's the thing you're actually studying?
Okay. All right. I will take all this into consideration.
Well, it's a question. It's a question. What in the case of gravity, what's the thing being studied? What's your phenomena? What's the thing that's happening?
So my understanding is that gravity is a relationship between two objects.
Okay.
Right? And so like there's a lot of things that go on in that relationship, like it being science. Yeah, like science, that was stupid. No, like it being math, calculations between like maybe myself, the ground, and the object I'm holding in my hand. And then so a theory, to me, gravity being a theory, would explain those phenomenons happening where I'm holding my keys out and dropping them to the floor, and then mathematically, my theory would become correct. Does that make sense?
It does, that because that's what's explained to you as gravity. Drop something, and then the relationship between the mass of the Earth and the keys is that they're attracting one another. Is that your supposition at this stage?
No, I understand gravity to be a theory, and the theory is all those mechanical mathematics that are going on inside my keys hitting the floor. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, other than that relationship is being described as mass attracting mass, and the air around you also has mass. And
it's not exactly mass attracting mass, because there is some calculations as to when the keys like falling to where the keys would be measured, like going higher, not just lower to the ground. Does that make sense?
Not really. Do you tend to observe lots of...
Explain it.
Okay, when I say what's the phenomena that you're describing isn't something that I observe. So I don't tend to notice that keys are falling to the ground around me. Unless, of course, someone picks them up and drops them. So when someone asks me why do keys fall to the ground, I say because someone picked them up and dropped them. but for the fact that someone picked them up and then dropped them, they wouldn't be falling to the ground. They'd just be static in equilibrium.
Okay, to me that doesn't have anything to do with the theory of gravity, but okay.
Well, gravity, depending on which one you're talking about, is mass attracting mass.
Well, so that would be like a weird phenomenon to me, like mass attracting mass.
Right, it doesn't. It doesn't. You cut me off when I tried to explain it. You cut me off when I tried to explain it. So mass, there's mass in the air around you. That's got mass. And it definitely isn't attracting. In fact, if it encounters anything, it bounces off it. In all directions. It's got mass, but yeah, it's not attracted to the mass of Earth. But that is the 106-year out-of-date version of gravity, mass attracting mass. Your keys moving towards the mass of Earth. But you had to pick them up first, and furthermore, gas has mass and isn't moving down towards the centre of Earth. It's expanding in all directions.
Okay.
Could I have a chance?
So just to round out before you join in. So it's not a theory. It's not even a phenomena that you can observe and describe to study. But because it's come into existence as somebody explaining something and then being described as science and then given the label theory of gravity, which is out of date by 106 years, I might add. But nevertheless, because it's been ascribed that title, you would assume, perfectly reasonable because you've been told so, that that's something you need to concern yourself with, the theory of gravity, when in reality there's not even a phenomena to study. There's nothing occurring to study. You can say I pick my keys up and drop them, but the explanation for that is you picking them up and dropping them.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
Because it's definitely more than that. Yeah. It's definitely more than
Tell me.
that.
Candy.
Hold on. Just let her tell. You disagree. That's good. What do you disagree with?
Because you said that gravity is mass attracting, like matter attracting matter. And for me, that's not how I understand gravity to be, or that's not my theory of what gravity is.
But we're not talking about your theory. We're talking about Einsteinian and Newtonian gravitational laws and theories. That's who we concern ourselves with, as opposed to you and what you think it is. No offence, but, Candy, you're not the arbiter of gravity. No offence.
All right, no offense taken.
Cool. So, meanwhile, it is described 106 years ago as mass attracting mass, i.e. keys moving to the mass of Earth. That's kind of a vague understanding that you do have. And it isn't, because gas has mass, and it isn't moving to the centre of Earth.
Didn't Einstein do it, come up with a theory, like, where he said that gravity is a theory? Like, didn't he explain, like, hold on a second, what I'm at a loss for words right now.
No, it's okay. Theory of general relativity is what you're clutching at straws to get, but that's fine. Yeah, theory of general relativity, another colloquial use of this scientific term, though.
Okay. All right, I'll go think about what you guys said.
Thank you very much. You've been an absolute pleasure to talk to, by the way. Thank you, Candy.
Thanks.
Could I say something to Candy?
You can't, because she's disappeared. She's on Chocolate's phone.
She's still here. Go ahead.
Candy, you know the phenomenon, the effects where we see, you pick up your keys and you let them go and they fall to the ground. We've already proven what that is with scientific experiment, that it's relative density. It has nothing to do with any force of attraction or any curvature of space-time or anything like that. We already proven that with science experiment what that is. It's just your keys are much heavier and more dense than the air that surrounds it. So the air that surrounds it can't possibly hold those keys up in the air, can it? The keys are going to fall through that medium until they reach something, and until they reach another medium, which would be the ground, that would be dense enough to support them. Do you understand what I mean? In the most basic terms? It's like, if it's, how is the air keys going to, we're all made of steel, how are they going to stay floating in the air? They're not. They're going to fall through that. But if you put them into water, they'll fall through that as well, but a bit slower. Why? Because water is a little bit more dense than air. So
Yeah.
relative density.
So what you're, my understanding of what you're saying is, it's been validated that I can hold my keys out and it hit the floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I understand it like the theory that's also a theory that's been validated and now a scientific theory, correct?
No. When
No,
it's described as
it's
mass
been-
attracting mass, no. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Sorry, it being proven that it's due to the density relationship between, let's say, the keys and the air. Yeah, that has been proven with scientific experiment. But a scientific experiment that proves something doesn't become a scientific theory straight away. Scientific theory is backed by science experiment that adheres to scientific scientific method. So it's been proven without a shadow of a doubt. You can even do it yourself. You can do the same experiment yourself about density, and you will always find the same relationship. So it has nothing to do with anything they call gravity. What they used to call mass attracting mass is now called curvature of space-time, which is not even a force. It's only an effect itself. And that's how it's described.
Hold on, Brian. Hold on, Brian. Go ahead, Candy.
And because that's validated, right? So
what's validated, Candy? Sorry.
Like having the math and all those things there, right, to explain it. Like
math is not a scientific proof. Math is just math. It's
Hold
just
on.
description.
Let me try, Brian. Hold on.
Okay.
You're saying, has there actually been any science done? Is that what you're asking? Has this at all been validated? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm saying because it can be validated, like all those mathematical things that he said is true. So like it's no longer just a theory, and then now gravity is a scientific theory.
Okay, what you're now doing?
Because
No offense,
it's no
Candy.
longer just an idea, right?
You've said that's the fourth time you've said it. What you're actually doing now is chanting because you want gravity to be a scientific theory. But we've by 3 different methods and 2 different people, we've tried to explain to you it isn't science. So I'll just try and say it in as blunt terms as I can. There isn't any scientific validation or experiments or theories for gravity. There isn't any science for it. Now, you may have been led to believe that the abstract maths somehow becomes physics and science. It isn't. It doesn't. It was all a lie, Candy. There isn't any science for gravity. I'm sorry.
And the scientific theory is like an apparent horizon, right?
Oh, I'm not even going there with
supposed
you
to be
guys.
scientific.
I know how that goes. I know how that goes. I'm not even going there on this one.
Candy,
Okay.
all you need to know is that there is no scientific evidence for gravity, and the reason your keys fall to the floor has already been scientifically proven through science experiment to be a density relationship. That's all you need to know. That's the very basics of it.
The current rhetoric is that the ground is coming up to meet the keys equally as it's falling down to meet the floor. Do you believe that? That's
Okay,
the current
look, I
rhetoric.
don't want to baffle her with bending geodesics in space, time, and Einsteinian gravity nonsense, conceptual mediums. No, like, she's got a general concept of the idea of mass attracting mass, although she doesn't want to relinquish it and wants to give us her version of that, which is fine, I suppose. But ultimately speaking, there isn't any science for this. That's the main point. Now, it's been mentioned by Brian, I believe, but there is science to prove empirically the relationship with relative density. That can be scientifically validated and has been. So when you want to say, oh, let's bandy about what's a theory and what isn't a theory, well, no, you don't need to worry about it. There is experiments that have been done, though, that can validate it as a disequilibrium. So you can force your keys into disequilibrium and they will return to equilibrium based on the density and the medium that they're in, relative to it. That's relative density disequilibrium if you're going to describe your keys passing through air to equilibrium. So it's described accurately, you can qualify it mathematically, but the description and explanation has been acquired experimentally. That's the main thing. Gravity hasn't. That's the main thing. I had to pop your line on mute, by the way, Chocolate, just because there was a lot of background while everyone else was talking. Of course, everyone quite simmered down now, obviously.
Oh, that was an interesting.
Nice to talk.
That was an interesting back and forth. At first, I was concerned about how she was interpreting theory. So I'm still not sure how she interprets theory versus a scientific theory, which has been validated, but a theory that hasn't gone through the scientific method is not validated. Do you think she was stuck there somewhere?
Yeah, stuck in a bit of a loop, because it's like, well, surely if it's been described as a theory, then the maths backs it as science. That's essentially the essence of what she's saying. Well, you go, okay, fine, you've been led to believe that, and I get it. And you could probably find me citation for that. Does it mean that it is actually empirically validated? No. Well, we know what empirical validation requires. It's going through the scientific method. Now, you can find nice, easy reference for what pseudoscience is. Anything that's claimed to be science that hasn't gone through the scientific method, that's pseudoscience. So then you need to know what the scientific method is, to know whether or not a claim of science is pseudoscience or not. Well, what defines it as science and what defines it as pseudoscience? Well, going through the method would be science. Not going through the method would be pseudoscience. So when I'm asked, well, does the maths validate this as a scientific theory? Well, maths is abstract. It's not validation by systematic experimentation, therefore it's not science. So no. If you ask me if maths is validating something, when you describe something and then put it through what you call a hypothesis, also known as your explanation, not supposition yet to be validated, which is what an actual scientific prediction, otherwise known as hypothesis, is. Well, no, it's not just an explanation that then moves on to be a scientific theory. That's the work of bullshit artists. That's why you think you're standing on a sphere with a non-force force you can think of as a force called gravity that comes out of a reification of abstract mathematics described as science. Actually pseudoscience. Turns out it wasn't science. Turns out they lied to you. Turns out there's people out there that hijack the terms of science to make you think that things exist when they don't. Fraudsters. Well, okay. But all we can do is say this is what pseudoscience is. A claim of science that hasn't been through the method of science. That's all it is. So therefore, to be science, you've got to go through the method of science. What's that you say? Well, that would be a hypothesis test. What's a hypothesis? A phenomena you're studying, also known as dependent variable, and your assumed cause of that effect that you'll vary to see if it causes it. If you cause it, you've validated it, that's a successful experiment which you can then build a theory on. That's science. Now, most of the stuff that we're told about the heliocentric theory, in quotes, isn't science. It's philosophy. Map making.
Let me summarize it in a single sentence. A concept without empiricism is not a theory. A science without a theory is not science.
Yeah, that's good, Arvin. I like that. It's funny, prior to this whole show and learning about the scientific theory, everybody says to everybody, I guess in a colloquial way, hey, what's your theory on this? Or what's your best guess on this? But they always use that term theory. What's your theory about what's going to take place? So it's really, what's your guess?
That was the whole conversation. That's how it started. And I appreciate that, guys, because I figured maybe it'll sound a little bit different coming from somebody that's not me. So appreciate that. But yeah,
she was very nice.
The whole conversation.
Thank her again for me. She was very nice.
Candy.
She was a nice lady.
Nathan said thank you. Yeah.
You got a shout out from Nathan.
But furthermore, what I found fascinating was it's normal human nature to start going through that cognitive loop. My understanding is that theories based on maths, and it's the maths of me dropping something, that's therefore science. She said it about 3 or 4 times, because it's a cognitive break in your programming when somebody points out something that you thought was correct, and then suddenly turns out to be a complete lie. It's actually quite difficult to swallow, and I get it. So that's why you end up in those cognitive loops. Some people feed those cognitive loops, and that ends up in what we describe as their pain. Because you can't do that indefinitely. That's the definition of cognitive dissonance. Well, that's pain. Mental pain. No one wants that. So what do? Do you keep telling yourself that they're maths, abstractions, numbers on paper aren't reality? That's not physics, it's maths. But you want to think that maths is science, that's physics, the physical, because they've done the numbers? It's like, no, you've been deceived by people that need to convince you with numbers and tell you that numbers are reality. And they're not. They're descriptions, it's like language. Well, describing something isn't explaining something. You can describe things with maths all day. I can describe the digestive system of a unicorn based on how much hay it eats in Narnia. I can mathematically quantify that all day long. Does it mean it's physical? Does it mean it's physics? Does it mean if I give you the maths perfectly, that becomes a scientific theory? No. But that's precisely what people have done now, isn't it? So you have everybody under the impression that when they've been given a load of maths, or statistics, or correlations, that it's science. And it isn't.
Shout out to Quantum Eraser, who's been waking up the world since 2016.
Indeed. This is basically down to him. We were all taught it in 5th grade, but we all forgot about it and just swallowed the magic pill of it's science, therefore it's empirical, whenever the word was uttered. Whenever you heard the word theory, you knew it was loosely associated with science, so you assumed that the thing being said was empirically proven. You heard the word experiment many times in the science lesson where they told you about empiricism and attached methodology to achieve it. But when you hear the word experiment now, when they're talking about how tyres grip better, you think this is empirical. Works wonders for selling stuff. It works wonders for selling you your entire worldview.
If it wasn't for Quantum Eraser, I wouldn't be in an extremely confident position to correct anybody, regardless of their scientific standing, right? As in their rank within their supposed field of science, on what actual science is, what a scientific theory is, what the scientific method is. I wouldn't be able to correct. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to correct anyone. I wouldn't even have anything to do with any of that. So it's because of him that I can confidently correct, regardless of their PhD, on what that is.
Indeed. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to Quantum Eraser, and of course to all of you watching in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, and joining as a member. All that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.